I wanted to take a minute to talk about the fear. And the longer I have the transplant, the more that fear grows. Um, the fear that the transplant will fail and I will go right back to being a dialysis patient again. Now, I understand, like, intellectually, I understand that, the transplants are finite, right? You don't know how long a transplant is going to last. No, you don't know. I don't know if I have 3 more years or 20 years with this one transplant. You just don't know, and that uncertainty creates fear in me. And I think about it more than I probably should when it comes to, like, man. I think about, and I watch old videos of myself, you know, using the dialyzer and sticking and all that other stuff, and it's just I feel so good right now, and I feel so free, and I feel strong, and I'm not tired anymore, or I'm not like I feel hydrated, and I just feel better. And then I think about how it used to be, and there is a strong part of me that does not want to go back to that. And I think that, I don't know, like, how that would mentally affect me if I had to, you know, just despite the fact that, like, I know in my mind that there is a possibility that it could happen, but that still doesn't mean that it's something that I want to happen, because I remember how devastating it was to go through this, like, the first time. And I'm just like, man, I'm not ready. I'm not ready to do that again. I'm just not ready to go back to that. And I believe that this fear is natural. It would be foolish of me to just be like, I'm cured and I will never have to worry about this again. Like, that's childish and, like, short-sighted. And I made this promise to my mother. She asked me to just, like, keep living, you know, until, like, I got the transplant and I achieved that. But then what happens when it fails again, or if it fails again, and then I have to go back through this? It's not going to be like a water off a duck's back thing. Like, I'm going to be devastated at this. It's one of the reasons why, and some of you guys may see me in these videos, like, training and jumping around and punching and kicking. This is like, that's how I exercise. And, like, I want to give this everything that I've got to make sure that this transplant does not fail on me. But that being said, you could do everything right and it could still just, circumstances outside of your control. You get sick with an infection, you get injured. I think about, like, blows to my midsection, like if I fell or if I got into a car accident or any sort of, like, major impact to, like, my midsection, and I could lose the transplant. Insecurities, like, I had this condition called HLH, and, like, my nephrologist, not my nephrologist, my oncologist, we couldn't determine where it came from, how it happened, what triggered it. This is a mystery. I just got sick. And I think about that too, of, like, well, I mean, what if these things happen? Like, what if it happens again? Like, how do I deal with that? How do I navigate that with the transplant? How will that affect the transplant? And it's like, it wouldn't be wise of me to just, like, ignore these things. These are emotions and fears and insecurities that I have to deal with, that I have to work through. Because if it does happen again, then what? I check out. Like, that's the only option that I have to avoid going through this again. And I'm sure there's gonna be people in the comments, or and I have people in my actual life that's gonna be, oh, well, just put it in God's hands, just put it in God's hands, and I'm like, I don't do that. That's not what I do. And this is not like a religious, atheist, anti-God thing. I just don't do that. These are real fears that I deal with on a daily basis. I wish that there was like an expiration date or a timestamp on this transplant of like, the second you get it, this transplant is good for the next 10 years. All right, that's great. So now I know how much time I have until I need another one. Because I'm 42 right now. You know what I mean? Excuse me, I'm 41 right now. So if this transplant fails within 5 years, I'm closer to 50 than I am 40. So if I have to do this again, I have to wait another X amount of years on top of, like, I don't know how long it takes antibodies to clear up after you get a transplant, but you gotta take that in consideration too. And I'm probably gonna be in my like early mid 50s maybe if I have another opportunity to get another transplant, on top of hoping that nothing bad has happened to me in between that time. It would be foolish of me to just get in front of this camera and just act like it's all gumdrops and rainbows. Hey man, I'm going to Disneyland, because it's not.